My name is Bramley Lingdo. I'm one of the advisors for Montessori Model United Nations. I bring greetings to you from London, and I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year in advance. At this particular time, I'd like to address a critical topic that we will be discussing, which is about how climate justice is the critical paradigm for education today. As you know, many nation states have just met at Glasgow at the United Nations Conference of Party number 26 to make a firm commitment of what each country will do to take climate action and achieve net zero by 2050 before we breach the 1.5 degrees centigrade global rise of temperature in this century. Now, this is easier said than done because a lot of developing countries have never emitted any emissions compared to developed countries that have been, you know, very much engaged in the Industrial Revolution, emitting billions of tons of carbon over the last 50 years. And countries like India and China are also catching up and emitting their share to develop their economies. However, poor island states and least developing countries and other very poor countries have done nothing but actually suffer the brunt of the emissions that these rich countries or countries in transitions are emitting. So as glaciers melt, sea level is rising, and I've just got back from the Gambia, and I know and have seen that their shorelines are being eroded by sea level rise. Their paddy fields where millions of people use it for agriculture are now being inundated by saltwater intrusion, impacting their lives. And these poor countries are much more worse off. Obviously, it's a question of climate justice because it's unfair for them to suffer the most, and yet developed economies with a lot of money can protect themselves. At the Paris Agreement in 2015, developed countries had promised $100 billion of funds to help least developing countries and other poorer countries survive and fight climate change through mitigation and adaptation strategies. Now, none of that money has actually trickled in for these poor countries, and it's been 6 years since we met in Paris. So it's high time for the citizens in these rich economies to work hard and hold their governments accountable and deliver those funds, much needed funds, critical funding to help our partners in the developing and the least developing economies. This is very important for you, the teachers, in this workshop when you teach your kids to understand how the world is so unfair, that climate is all about justice, who has the resources and who doesn't, who can protect themselves and who can't protect themselves. So it's not a level playing field as we see it. So it's critical for young people in the developed economies of the United States or Europe to understand that they have a major role to play as young consumers or producers, because whatever they consume impacts the life of other kids in the developing world that have nothing. All the plastics you produce will land up in the poor countries. All the junk you produce in the rich world will land up in the poor countries on their shores, and they will have to live with that junk for the rest of their life and suffer. And that's happening as we speak. And as we speak, also a lot of plastic waste is being dumped into our oceans, and marine life is suffering. And even worse, they're being washed into the shorelines of developing countries, because these countries buy waste from rich countries like Ghana and many other countries. And as young people or as teachers teaching the kids, we should take action by reducing our waste and our trash. As young concerned global citizens, we should teach our kids to grow trees every year, at least 10 of them, not just plant, but actually make sure that they survive and grow. Because a lot of tree planting projects around the world where billions are spent, but what's the use if you don't care for those trees? They're not going to grow up. They might just die off. So we must take care of reducing our waste and planting our trees and using less water and thinking of your peers and fellow students in developing countries. So in this time of giving during Christmas, I think each of us can at least partake by joining the revolution and logging on earthbank.io, that is www.earthbank.io, and subscribe as an individual or as a school or as a college or as a university or as a company by just paying $5 a month for you to become net zero and earth positive, and helping Earth Bank plant trees in India and Africa, in Latin America, helping millions of deserving indigenous people and local farmers and communities to restore the balance on the planet.